Okay, we are live here on Facebook and YouTube on the Exchange Podcast channel. Tonight, I have a guest, Duane Whitmer. He is somebody that I think a lot of us would really need to get some good advice from. He is a small business owner and an accountant, and he is also running for New York 27 Congressional District. And he is, listen, Duane, I can see that you got the same quarantine beard going. We probably need a haircut just as bad as everybody else. We're going to have to turn to the black market for a haircut soon. You know, who thought I would have to go to Craigslist to get a haircut? How are things going upstate New York?
You know, it's not too bad up here. I'm in Buffalo. I'm just south of Buffalo, so they're getting hit pretty hard with all this too. And we're kind of doing the shutdown and listening to our county executive talk every day, which is kind of weird, but it's a nightmare up here, man. It's the stuff we're dealing with, and what's worse than the virus and the economic issue is the just the ignorance and the fear-based drivel that we're seeing. It's tough. I mean, it's tough to stay. I love people and I love talking to people, but some of the people that I'm seeing online and seeing some of the things they're saying, it's scary because all it takes is one crisis for Americans to turn on each other, and I don't like seeing that.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think of this whole what's been going on in Michigan with the protest and people coming together? Obviously, people are sick and tired of the fact that their businesses are shut down by the government. The government says you cannot operate your business, and it's been about a month since they've been shut down. Where do you stand on the whole coming together? I mean, at some point, people are going to get pissed and go out and fight.
It's a massive catch-22. And here's why. I did a post on Facebook about this. It is absolutely possible for someone to think that the coronavirus is a serious illness and not want to catch it, be worried about the government response because the government has failed in their response, and also want to reopen the state and reopen businesses and be able to go in public. You can actually feel all three types of ways. It's not a linear way. If I say I think we should have a discussion about reopening parts of businesses and parts of the county, I'm not saying that I hope everyone gets coronavirus and dies. I'm not saying I don't believe the coronavirus is a serious thing. I'm not saying that I wish everyone gets it. I can acknowledge that it's a serious illness, but still want to have a discussion on opening businesses. If someone says, you know, I'm afraid of the illness, they're not saying we should shut down everything indefinitely. And, you know, so it's a tough thing to say because I noticed in Michigan, I watched a lot of the comments in Michigan and in California. And what blew my mind was a lot of my friends, and I read what friends say on Facebook. Friends of mine.
We seem to have lost Duane. Duane, you back? Nah, I don't catch it. We seem to have lost connection, Duane. So while Duane's waiting, so obviously we're talking about the impact that coronavirus has had on small businesses. Duane's here to talk about. He's an accountant from upstate New York. He deals with small businesses. He owns a small business. So I'd like to get his input on the stimulus bill, where we go from there with the taxes and how taxes are going to, whether or not you can write this off if you're a small business, whether or not you can write off. And it looks like we have Duane back. Duane, gotcha. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Sorry. I use my phone, so it's the best quality video. And for some reason, when I put do not disturb on, sometimes I get disturbed and it messes with the whole thing. So I'm 33 and technology scares me. So I don't know what to say. But I see that the things people are saying on Facebook scares me because I see people saying, you know, oh, these people are jerks and I hope they catch coronavirus. I hope they all die. we shouldn't be degrading what other people are doing without understanding why they're doing it. So there's a rally planned in Buffalo tomorrow, and I know people that are going, and they're not going because they think the coronavirus is a joke. They're not going because they think, it's not real. They're going because they own businesses. They haven't got their unemployment checks yet. Their money's not coming in. They have bills due. They have a family to support. And they just want to have the conversation of, maybe us as humans can practice proper social distancing. We can wear our masks. We can stay away from each other and still go about certain things. That's why one of the comments I always got a kick out of was when I was watching Michigan. A lot of commenters said, oh, well, these idiots are still wearing masks and doing social distancing. Yeah, because they still think a coronavirus is a serious thing. You can still take precautions and think it's a serious problem and still go in public and practice social distancing, wear your mask, avoid contact. You can actually do both. It is actually possible to do more than one thing at once. And so we've gotten this very linear mindset where it's, absolute one thing or absolute the other. And it's not the case. And I think we need to start having intelligent, rational discussions. But I think fear drives us all nuts. I really do. I think a lot of people are just afraid. So it's a tough spot. I see where the people are coming from. I'm on the fence about attending tomorrow's Buffalo rally because the other thing that scares me is you saw it with the Black Lives Matter rallies. You see it with the pro-gun rallies. With a lot of these rallies, the media is going to look for the worst representation of the group they can find. They're not going to find the guy who's there to say, hey, A, B, and C are my concerns. I want to have a decent, educated conversation. They're going to find the person in the Trump hat that is going to say things like 5G caused this.
Yeah.
They want that. They want the conspiracy theory so then they can say, wow, these people are crazy. Look who's coming out. All these nuts. They don't believe the virus is real. And then that fires up the other side and starts the division, the hate, because that's what sells. Sex, violence, anger, division, hate. That is what sells in the media. And if you're the media, you need people tuning in. People aren't going to tune into people coming together and having an intelligent conversation. People are going to tune in so they can say, wow, this guy's an idiot. I hate him. I hope he gets coronavirus. And then they're going to say that, and then it starts the division all over again. So I understand why people are upset and having these rallies. And I think we need to start having an intelligent conversation with each other and learn that both sides of the aisle are afraid. It's a terrifying time to be around. But if we don't have these conversations, it's not going to solve our problem. And also before, I'm sorry, I've been talking a lot, but last thing before you go is I think we need to acknowledge how this all started was progressive government failure. We couldn't have test kits. We couldn't get tests. We couldn't get, I couldn't go on Amazon, the world's greatest distribution network, and buy a test because they're not available. Why aren't they available? Because they haven't gone through FDA testing. This scrutiny, big overbearing regulatory body hasn't allowed test kits. Well, there's your problem. A lot of this could have been prevented if we were able to get tests. The market can respond. The government impeded quick response from the market.
And what's also funny is that Cuomo, during one of his speeches, mentioned during his speech, one of his briefings, I had to cut the regulation and red tape in order to speed up the process to get to get the test kits, to get the extra ventilators. He said it.
Well, if you read some of the things he says in his press conferences are hysterically hypocritical. I saw that he talked about cutting regulations. He talked about the government using private research facilities. He talked about how local government is quicker to respond and kind of county rights. He talked about things that he's negated, and everything he's done as governor he's now acknowledging, county rights. Counties can open at their own leisure at their time. He's acknowledging that, private entities are better. He's acknowledging the market works. But when this is over, is he going to realize that and start to change his policies? No. So it's kind of frustrating. He's acknowledging. I remember one of his first press releases, his first press event, he said something about what did he say? I wish I wrote it down, because he made a comment about local government's better, deregulation's better, decentralization is better, and it's what we've been preaching about for years. Welcome to the Libertarian Party. It's just, we've been saying that for years, but in a crisis situation, it's absolutely true, and it's just, no one's going to learn from this.
A big reason why I wanted to bring you on is the stimulus bill. I'm sure you've been following it. You're a small business owner. You run a tax business. I'm sure you've been keeping up on it. So I'm going to play the press conference with Trump. I want you to just hear in what he was talking about, and then I'm going to pause at specific spots, and then we're going to discuss a couple of things. So I'm just going to play right now.
Well, thank you all very much. It's a very important day. I'll sign the single biggest economic relief package in American history, and I must say, or any other package, by the way. It's twice as large as any relief ever signed.
Why does everything, by the way, I just have to stop, have to be twice as big or twice as great as anything else in the history of the world with him? It's hilarious.
No one's going to acknowledge the fact that he said it's the biggest package. No one's going to touch that one.
I know. That's like such a good little short clip right there. But we're going to get to some numbers I want to go over with you.
It's $2.2 billion, but it actually goes up to $6.2 potentially billion dollars, trillion dollars.
Trillion. All right. So now he's talking about the stimulus package, which just passed, is $2.2 trillion, not billion. He misspoke as usual. But $2.2 trillion. But it could go up to 6.2 trillion. What is that even? That's a $4 trillion buffer. What are we looking at in terms of the size of this bill when we already have $24 trillion in debt? 6.2 trillion is absolutely insane. Where does this end? But let's finish his amazing speech, and then we'll get to the numbers.
So you're talking about a $6.2 trillion bill, nothing like that. And this will deliver urgently needed relief to our nation's families, workers, and businesses. And that's what this is all about. And it got a 96-0. And I don't know, what was the number in Congress? What was the voice? That's fantastic.
I think it's just as close.
That's pretty amazing. That's about the same thing, right, Kevin?
Yes.
So that's fantastic. But I want to thank Republicans and Democrats for coming together, setting aside their differences, and putting America first. This legislation provides for direct payments to individuals and unprecedented support to small businesses. We're going to keep our small businesses strong.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the smallest percentage of the money that went to the people in stimulus checks? Everybody got about $1,200. If you're married, I think it was $2,400, and then you got $500 per child. So that is, compared to the 2.2 trillion, that's got to be a small percentage of that. And then the small businesses, they ran out of money within the first day of being available to take the money.
A couple things. Number one, he pulled a typical politician move when he said this is the largest stimulus bill ever signed. It was just about being the biggest. He wanted to throw a large number so the average voter would say, wow, he threw $2.2 trillion at the problem. It's typical government moves. The government, when there's a problem, they say, we're investing X amount of dollars into this problem. And the average taxpayer says, well, the government's investing money in it. They must care about it, and they're going to fight it, and they're going to help us. And that's not really the case. It's just, it would be like if, I use the analogy of, a pervert in a strip club. Just because he's throwing money at you doesn't mean he's solving anyone's problems. And that's typical government move. The scary thing is that it's crushing our deficit and crushing our debt, but also if you look at who's benefiting the most in these deals, it's not you or me. It's not even small businesses. It's coming out that banks are actually making a killing in this, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you do the math, I believe at 2.2 trillion, this comes out to like $6,000 per American citizen. And you got $1,200. So in other words, you got nothing. Well, someone else got $4,800, and it's donors of Congress are getting bailed out. They're getting massive bailout. They're getting massive funds. These industries are getting paid to, it's a way to kick them money, and that in turn is going to go back to Congress through donations. It was pretty disappointing. It was a massive type of corporate welfare, and they threw
thanks.
the American people.
Crony capitalism at its best, without question, the highest big corporate. Now, think about this is a problem that I have with this. Most corporations or people that are invested in corporations or own corporations, they're making billions of dollars a year. So they can't take a loss for a year and then make up the difference. The government has to spend the money to bail them out. That's what I don't understand.
That's a problem, but also the problem is, to be honest, just to be blunt, the reason why they're bailing out, like you see these payment protection plan loans for small businesses, and the economic impact recovery loan, or EIDA. There's a bunch of loans and grants you can get. The only reason why they're doing them is to smooth out unemployment. So what they wanted was, hey, if we give corporations money to not lay off their employees, it's not skewing the unemployment numbers. It's not terrifying the stock market. It was to smooth out unemployment claims. That's all it was. They were hoping that this would be an 8-week, because if you look at what the payment protection loan is for, is we will forgive it if you use it for payroll over 8 weeks. So they said, hey, if we shut down for 8 weeks, we can actually lower the unemployment numbers. We can manipulate the unemployment numbers and, in fact, the market, by not letting the market take a massive hit by doing this. It was a move to essentially rob Peter to pay Paul, and also impact numbers. But also it was to, in theory, which I don't really think it's going to do very well, is take the burden off the states. If you file for unemployment, it goes through the state, whereas these payment protection loans are coming from the federal government, and a lot of these loans and stimulus plans are coming from the federal government. So it was to actually remove the burden from some of the states, which in theory sounds great, but has other issues with it, especially New York State, which has passed some, they've cut some regulations for unemployment, but they haven't really done a great job for sole proprietors or single member corporations, or a lot of small businesses are still going to suffer. So
let me ask you a question. How much similar is this stimulus bill to the bill in 2008, the bailout in 2008, where where the government bailed out these big major banks? I mean, how much similar is this bill really to that? And I mean, they're not bailing out banks particularly this time. This time they're bailing out the big major corporations, or are they bailing out banks?
I'm glad you said that, because I forgot to mention who is profiting immensely during this time? Banks. And let's explain why. And I've learned this. The last 2 weeks have been a terrifying time for me. The last month's been pretty bad. As you said, I own an accounting practice. I'm the president of a corporation, and I do about 42 payroll clients on a monthly basis, and only 5 of them are running. So I'm out 37 payroll clients. It comes out to be about $900 a week in billing. I'm out. My bookkeeping and consulting, I'm at about $5,000 to $8,000 a month in fees there. I'm taking a massive hit, and it scares me. That scares me, number one. But what also scares me is I'm talking to all my clients, and of the 37 payroll companies that aren't running payroll, I don't think half of them are going to reopen. Mm-hmm. This is devastating. And all of these clients, I do 1,500 tax returns. 30% of them are businesses, sole proprietor, corporations, partnerships, etc. And what happened was, a local bank around here, I'm going to say who it was, KeyBank. KeyBank was pushing a lot of my clients to apply for these PPP loans. And I said, guys, I've sat on 30 hours of calls with the SBA, and I read parts of the bill. I read most of the bill. I've done hours of talks about this bill, been on hours of, literally days worth of calls. I don't think you qualify. Well, my bank says I qualify. Yeah, I really don't think you qualify. Here's why. ABC is why you don't qualify. The bank was still collecting their application and convincing them to apply, telling them to apply. So out of fear, ignorance, panic, whatever, they applied, which jams up the system with bullshit applications. But also, they waited a month and they didn't get it. And so now they're panicking because it's been a month. Their money's running low. They thought they were getting it, and now they're not. Well, the reason why the bank told them to apply was because the bank gets a fee for every application they process. whether you get it or not, whether you're approved for this loan or not, whether they give you money or not, the bank is getting a fee for processing that application. So banks are making hundreds of millions of dollars on actually.
Who's paying the fee? Who's paying the
Yeah.
fee? The consumer or the government's cutting the bill?
The government's cutting the bill to the bank.
Okay.
So then, to make things even worse, is in the application process, you can ask, did anyone help you? I could have been charging a fee to help fill out these loans. Granted, I don't know who cuts that fee, if the individual does or the government does. I didn't charge people to do it. The reason why I didn't was because I couldn't guarantee they were going to get the loan or not.
Right.
And as much as I need the money myself, I feel like it's not libertarian of me to profit off of someone else's misfortune. And essentially, they're worried if their business is going to stay open. I can't take the last $400 out of their kids' mouths to help them fill this form out. So
how long can somebody how long can somebody survive who owns a small business, who's going through this right now? And obviously, based on numbers and, how long can they stay or survive on what the government's offering them during this time? How long can they stay closed?
How long can they? It varies. I have clients that, let's talk about this. I have clients that are going to the Reopen Buffalo rally tomorrow because they need to go grocery shopping Friday and they don't have enough money.
Unbelievable.
So there are some that they haven't got their stimulus check, their Trump bucks. I have clients that have told me they've been waiting 5 weeks for unemployment.
Wow. Well, the system crashed. The system crashed because it's completely overwhelmed. They can't handle 26 million people going unemployed within a week. Or 2 weeks. That's how many people file for unemployment. It's unbelievable. Nobody's ever.
Yep. I have people that have been waiting 5 weeks for unemployment, 3 weeks for unemployment. Their massage therapists. Actually, some of my most annoyed clients are actually restaurant owners. And it sounds weird because they're still open, but they're taking such a large hit financially that technically they're open, but they're taking a massive loss. And restaurants have razor thin margins, but since you're technically still open and technically you're working, you can't get unemployment. But landscapers, massage therapists, but my landscaping clients are mad because in Erie County, the rule is you can mow your lawn. I can hire a landscaper to mow my lawn, but he can't essentially leave anything behind.
Right.
The problem that you have if you're a landscaper, here's your catch-22 as a business owner. And one of my clients is a friend of mine. I'm using him as an example. He owns his own landscaping business with 0 employees. It's just him. He makes most of his money in the spring cleanup. That's where he bills you to clean up your gardens, to clean up your stuff. So
I paid that. It's a big chunk. I've paid it. It's a good way for them to make money.
Yeah. He resods your lawn. He fixes where your dogs have run. Like me, he fixes my backyard where my dogs run back and forth all winter. He resods it. That's where he makes his money. He doesn't make money off of a $30 lawn cutting. So he can cut your lawn, but he can't do anything else. So in cutting lawns, plus we had a mild winter. So he owns landscaping and snow plowing. He didn't do any snow plowing. And he's one of those guys that refuses to do contract-based snow plows. He charges you by the plow. And so he didn't make a ton of money because and his logic is he doesn't have the ability to be out at 5 o'clock in the morning in everyone's yard or driveway. So he does it by the job. He'll come plow you out. You throw him some bucks. So he had a rough winter. It was a tight winter that hurt his savings. And so his catch-22 is, does he call all his clients and say, hey, I'm shutting down so I can get unemployment. I'm not mowing your yard. Find a new landscaper. And so he can get hopefully get a couple weeks of unemployment. Or does he stay open and risk the risk and essentially say, look, if you're okay with it, I will do the entire cleanup and bill you for it. Just your secret's my secret. Or does he try to trim his fat and because he's got his girlfriend, his 2 kids, so he supports a family of 4. Does he ask for help? Does he ask friends and family for some donations so he can buy groceries to get through the tough time?
Let me ask you a
Because
question.
his-
Let me ask you a question. What is the actual stipulation if you own a small business to where if you do not lay off employees that you could fill out and the government will reimburse you at this where you don't get
No.
charged a fee? How does this work?
What the PPP loan was you can get 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. So I'll use myself as an example. My average monthly payroll was say $5,000. So when I applied, I can apply for a $12,500 loan. And if I don't lay anyone off for 8 weeks, if I don't lay off 20% of my workforce or 25% of my workforce over the next 8 weeks, and that money goes to mortgage, rent, utilities, or payroll, it's forgiven.
Okay.
The problem you have with this guy is he's a Schedule C self-employed guy. He doesn't have payroll.
So
he has no way to prove what his payroll. Yeah, he can't prove payroll because his payroll is whatever's left over at the end of the month.
My other question is, what about restaurant workers, waitresses, people bartend who make a cash? Most of their money is in tips. How do they claim and get any money from the government?
Well, yeah, it's tough. But this guy's catch-22 is, does he shut his business down, hope he gets unemployment, and then start from scratch when this is over? Or does he try to maintain what he can and scrape by with what he can? It's a decision that him and I talked hours the last couple of days about it. And I said, man, I can't make this. I know what I would do.
I would just cut the grass anyway and just, not bill anybody.
I would become a criminal. Yes. I'm sorry. I would be an adult. I would tell my clients, hey, under the current rules, I can only do this. But if you're willing to keep a secret and pay me, I'll do it all. That's what I would be doing. I'm sorry, but I'm feeding my family is important. And that's where you have the issue when you see people comment, and a lot of libertarians have made this comment that it concerns me. And the comment is, my family's more important than you making money. Not every small business owner, not every sole proprietor, not every self-employed individual has a Scrooge McDuckian-like vault in his basement that they're going to go dive in at the end of the night. This client, and I would say 50% of my small business clients live a modest life. They're not quite check to check. Some of them have nice things, but they're not living the life of luxury. They're doing what they love, and at the cost of they're not living an extravagant life. They love what they do. And so they do it, and they sacrifice income to do it. It's fine. Good for them. And in stating things like that, you're essentially saying your problems don't matter to me, which is fine. But you're also saying that, you're ignoring the fact that they support their family from this earnings. And you're also saying, and this is one thing that people often attack the Libertarian Party for, is being selfish, greedy. I got mine, some for me, none for thee. I got mine. I don't care about you. Well, that's that mentality, because one of my friends posted something about how she didn't understand why people would want to go to work. They should all stay home. She has her stimulus Trump bucks. Her husband has unemployment. What's your problem? And so I commented and I said, well, you got yours, but I have clients that don't have money coming in right now. They didn't get their Trump bucks. They aren't getting unemployment. Their savings is dwindling. You're saying that you got yours. Who cares about everyone else? You're not understanding why they're concerned. The horror stories I've heard and seen the last couple weeks are terrifying. I understand the frustration to want to reopen. I understand clients going to buy groceries and their cards are getting declined because they're running out of money. I've heard horror stories.
Duane, I'm going to bring up something that I might catch some shit for, but I mean, and this is the way most Americans live. We're a very consumer nation. We like to spend, but this is a prime example of why saving and over the time and, for some sort of, who would have thought something like this would happen? But us as Americans, and I blame myself, me included, a lot of us do not save properly for a disaster situation like something like this, where we have that account to dip in, because we're very consumer oriented. Everything revolves around
Yeah.
purchasing the
Well,
newest phone.
Well, that is actually I'm gonna say something. If you're gonna get flack, I'm gonna get even more flack for this. I think that's the point. I
Mhm.
think that growing up in school, I only became money savvy. I grew up poor. I grew up very, very poor.
Yep.
I became savings and money savvy because I know what it's like to go without. And so that's why I became money driven, savings driven, and kind of came how I became because I knew what it was like to not have a lot of money growing up. But growing up, you're not taught how to save. You're not taught how to be an intelligent consumer. You're not taught how to budget. You're not taught how to you're not taught how to do certain things. And I think that's the point. I think that's the progressive agenda, because if you learn how to save, if you learn how to become an intelligent consumer, if you learn how to kind of survive on your own, you're going to realize you don't need the government.
Mhm.
You know, you don't need UBI. You don't need the government to save you. You don't need the government to come to your rescue, and they can't manipulate you to vote a certain way.
Vicky, somebody by the name of Vicky mentioned as you were talking right there, it's hard in the economy pre-COVID to save money,
Yeah.
which is great point.
It's especially in New York State. And New York State is one of the least business-friendly states in the nation. Their overbearing taxes, regulations, and licensing makes it so it's a catch-22. And actually, New York State, because of their overbearing regulations and taxes and fees and everything, it actually makes it very beneficial to be a criminal. It's very beneficial if you're a contractor to pay your employees off the books,
Right.
and not get workers' comp. It's very beneficial to, take cash payments. It's very, to the point where the fines are actually, I've represented people in front of the New York State Tax Department, and their fines are actually less than what they're saving by ripping off the government.
Right. Some people would rather just pay the fine. Why? It saves the
100%.
money.
There's been times where 100% I'm representing someone in front of the government, and I look them dead in the face and say, accept the fine and walk away. You just made out like a bandit.
Why?
It's
Let me ask you a question, Duane. Why wouldn't the government just allow people, because people have credit card bills, people have loans, mortgages, car payments. Why wouldn't the government just allow people to defer those payments to the very end, where they don't have to get furloughed? Because furlough in the payment, you're still like, once this is over, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're the accountant, but like now, okay, the COVID's over, everything's back to normal. You still got to pay those 3 months during this crisis right off the bat if you're furloughed. Am I correct? You owe it right up front.
Deferring them still makes them due pretty soon. Yeah.
Right. So now why wouldn't the government allow, or is it because it's a private, you made the loan, it's your problem, or can't the government do that?
Well, it's also, you run a risk of, I think the banks should be the intelligent ones to make that decision. I think the bank should say, but it shouldn't 2008 for this reason. I think it's up to the banks. I think the bank should say, hey, we understand the situation we're going through. We're going to tack these payments on at the end. And you're not going to see it. Hopefully some banks, I know Wells Fargo, who has my mortgage, they have said something similar to that. They did mention, I got an email that there is a program where you can tack them on at the end. I'm lucky enough I haven't got behind in my mortgage.
I don't think Chase is doing that. Chase is definitely not doing that. And Chase is one of the biggest banks. They got the most money. You think that they would be able to let you knock it off at the end. I got a question from you from our one of the viewers who's asking, Vicky's asking, what regulations have New York State lifted in the current atmosphere that you would champion removing when elected?
Well, I'm running a federal race, and some of the federal regulations lifted are a lot of the ones that have to do with the FDA, streamlining things to the FDA. There's a test kit that has been pending FDA approval for like 50 days.
Which is unbelievable.
2 months now. Yeah.
We're in a crisis. I need to get tested so I know if I can mingle with other people.
And again, like I said earlier, all this would have been solved if we could do testing. But it's been in the market. But it's not like it was approved in countries you've never heard of before. I think the UK and it's been
Might have been South Korea,
like
South Korea
countries. The UK, is it?
I'm pretty sure South Korea.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same test, but it's been approved through already first world developed countries. So we should be streamlining it. But the problem is, the problem with this situation is that it's a very good learning situation, and no one wants to learn the truth. The truth is, Big Pharma dominates donations to both parties. 493 of the 535 members of the House get donations from Big Pharma. It's not a red or blue issue. It's a them versus you issue. And Big Pharma donates to increase FDA regulations in the guise of your safety. Another good example, this is the example that I use two. A couple of years ago, H&R Block actually lobbied Congress. And let's talk about what lobbying Congress means. They bought congressmen.
Right.
They bought congressmen, and they made it harder for you to prepare your own taxes. They made it so there's extra questionnaires needed to qualify for the earned income credit. Now, who qualifies for the earned income credit? Low income taxpayers, or low income tax filers. They're not all taxpayers. Why would H&R Block want low income tax filers to have a harder time preparing their taxes? Well, let's compare H&R Block's demographic, who's going to H&R Block, to who's affected by these new laws. They've essentially made it harder for you to prepare your taxes, so you'll go to them and they can try to market to you the payday. Well, they're not the tax return loans, which is, hey, you're getting an $8,000 refund. We'll give you $6,000 today. They want to market that to you. So they've made it harder for you to do your own taxes so they can boost their revenues.
What they call it? It's like going to like a mobster on the street to get a loan, a loan shark, basically. It's a professional loan shark business they turned it into.
Yep. So H&R Block lobbied Congress to do that. They also lobbied Congress, and in doing so, they made it harder for people like me to keep up with the paperwork, the filing. They've pushed that there's fines. And so what they did, it's a genius move what they did. Aren't you afraid of tax fraud? If they don't fill out these forms and sign them, they could commit tax fraud. So we should make these forms more detailed, and you need to save these forms. And if you don't save this form, it's a $500 fine, and you got to keep all this information. Well, the problem is that in the theory of tax fraud, you've made it harder, and H&R Block profits. Tyson Farms did it. My father owns a farm in Wyoming and Cattaraugus. He's on the board of Wyoming and Cattaraugus County, and he's a small beef farmer. He owns about 50 cows. As an accountant, there's something called fixed cost or allocable costs. And so if I walk into the butcher that now has to have certain FDA approvals and have certain FDA regulations passed, he passes those costs on to me. So say it's a minimum of $5,000 to butcher my cows. If I'm taking 50 cows to the butcher, that cost is $100 per cow. But if I'm taking 5,000 cows to the butcher, it's an average of $1 per cow. So my dad has to charge at least $100 more per cow to just catch up that cost. So that's what certain regulations they pass that get passed on to the consumer and the end user. So that allows the larger companies to charge less for certain things and essentially price the smaller companies out of the market. They pass these FDA. Now, if you recall, recently Tyson and Purdue have had massive recalls because, they're not really, the FDA regulations aren't really making you safer. It's one of those things where they're allowed to manipulate the market and essentially stifle competition by passing overbearing regulations under the guise of safety. And that's what the FDA did. And here's where it bit us in the ass.
It's always safety is always the scare tactic that is used to get any type of bill passed, law passed, regulation, and it always favors the lobbyist within the state. Now, I got a question for you. These stimulus checks that we're getting now, will that count as income next year when we do our taxes?
No. From what I understand, it was floated that it was anticipation against your future refund. That got shot down. It is not income. It is not going to be affecting your future taxes. It's essentially free money, which, as you and I both know, isn't a good.
It's not really free money. We're just getting our money back that they've been taking all this time over the years.
Well, actually, what it is let me ask you a question. How much does it cost your kids and your grandkids to give the American taxpayers $350 billion? It costs them $2.2 trillion. The number doesn't add up. You don't need a calculator to know that $2.2 trillion does not equal $350 billion. So there was a lot of pork in this bill. It's proven that Thomas Massie was correct when he did what he did. A lot of people, out of fear and anger, got mad at him, but he was spot on. He had problems, and well, he was right. It was a mess. The people in Congress used this opportunity to pad their donors' coffers.
You never let a good crisis go to waste. You never let a good crisis go to waste. There's always room for. I mean, look, they were trying to shove in $35 million for the Kennedy Center into a Corona stimulus bill. Why do we have to shove that garbage in? There's a lot of. They wanted airlines, if they took the money, to be carbon efficient by 2025. What does that have to do with coronavirus? These are all these little things that people don't realize is in that bill that cost $2.2 trillion. Why not just take that $2.2 trillion and actually give it to the American people who need it, who are the waitresses, the bartenders, the people who are screwed because their businesses were shut down by the government, period, and they have nothing. And I understand you want to stop the spread of this, but to only fork over $1,200 a month per person when you just took their livelihood away, and then half of these small businesses who filed for these loans, it was ran out of money, so they weren't prepared for the amount of small businesses that filed.
I think it's a great way to manipulate. I think you're going to see. It's a good way to manipulate the average American. They got their $1,200. They now love the government. And I'm going to answer Steven's question in a second. And it's a pretty blunt answer. We can't have clean bills because then Congress doesn't profit off of it. Simple as that.
It's true.
If I pass a bill, if I'm in Congress and I pass a bill that actually benefits you, where's mine? I deserve it. I've heard most people are making more. I would like to talk about that one too.
Yes.
Because I'm going to make a prediction. I've made this prediction twice.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, this never happened. But if I'm right, I'm a genius. So typical politician move on my part right here. But yes, actually, last week I was sitting in my office with a couple clients came in, and the one guy, he works for a landscaping company. And because it was a light winter, I do a lot with work with landscaping. Apparently, I do work for landscapers all the time. But as he works for a landscaping snow plowing company, and since it was a light winter, he got laid off in February before the coronavirus hit. He was getting $418 a week unemployment. All of a sudden, he woke up one day, and now he gets $1,018 a week. He's making more than he made working in the landscaping company on unemployment. Another one of my clients, similar situation. He goes, Duane, he said I can use him as an example. I just can't use his name. He goes, I make $900 a week after taxes, or I make $980 every 2 weeks after taxes. I'm getting $847 a week, or whatever he said, after taxes. He's like, I was making $980 every 2 weeks. Now I'm making $847 every week. He's like, I'm making hundreds of dollars more. And so he goes, what do? I go, shut up and take the money, man. But he made
Yeah.
a point.
You always get scared though that all of a sudden you're going to go get your paycheck one day and it's going to be missing because you owe the government. The government's going to realize they made a mistake and come take it.
And Kevin, that's my prediction. I do not trust New York State. I was once on the Niagara, the haters. There's some people that are going to love me when I say this. I was on unemployment once. And when I applied for unemployment, I had to prove my income. I had to show them pay stubs. I had to prove I was working, prove I was let go. When people are applying now, it literally says, where did you work? What's the EIN? Are you unemployed because of COVID? Done. So what happens is they're not verifying income. They're just throwing an amount at you.
Right.
They call you. They're supposed to call you and walk you through things if you get through. There's more to it than just that. But they're not really doing a good job of verifying income. I would not put it past New York State when this is all said and done to have the State Department audit your unemployment claims and say, hey, you were given $1,100 a week. Prove you were entitled to it. We're going to claw it back. I wouldn't put it past New York State to try that.
Another question I want to ask you, kind of on the topic you're on. When this is all said and done, is there a chance that New York State could audit you based on, because they use algorithms to figure out who to audit come tax season, and it's computer automated. Now the system's going to be overwhelmed because now you're getting income from different places. How likely are you to get audited when you do your taxes next year?
Oh, I think you're going to see, this is what's, part of me says, good for me, but bad for you guys.
Right.
New York State doesn't issue, you get a 1099-G. I think it's a 1099-G in New York State. Or is it a W-2G? No, W-2G is gambling. I'm sorry. You get a form for unemployment in New York State. They don't mail it to you. You have to get it online.
So if you don't get it, what happens? If you don't get it, what happens? You screw yourself?
You get a letter because they know how much you made. If you don't claim it on your taxes, you get a letter.
Okay.
So I think you're going to see next year a lot of people forget they claimed unemployment. Or say, oh, I never got a form. I didn't get anything. I must not have to claim it. And they're going to file their taxes incorrectly. And New York State's going to slap them with fines, penalties, fees. I think you're going to see a lot of that, especially the older people who live my dad's area. They don't have really Wi-Fi. They don't have great internet. My dad doesn't have a computer. So if he goes on unemployment, how the hell is he going to get his W-2 or his 1099-G for unemployment when he doesn't have a computer? So I think you're going to see a lot of that too, where people are going to say, oh, I didn't get anything. Maybe they forget. They didn't realize they have to claim it. And you're going to see a lot of that. And I think you're also going to see they move the filing deadlines back. But like you mentioned, it's all computerized.
Right.
So I think what you're going to see is anyone who's filing their taxes now and paying after the 4/15 deadline, they're still going to get a letter from New York State, and it's up to them to respond saying, I applied late or I filed late because of COVID.
Let me ask you a question. What advice do you give small business owners as things start to reopen up? They already started talking about certain states obviously opening up at different times, depending on how bad it is. New York, my prediction is going to be one of the last states because he got hit so hard. And he's already canceled flights coming in until May 15th. So we're looking at least May 15th, maybe even longer. What advice would you have to a small business owner that is getting ready to open back up and has missed this last 2 months, 3 months, however long it takes of revenue, income, employees? What advice would you give them?
Oh, Jesus. It's tough because it's hard. You want to get excited. Go slow, be careful, be mindful that with our state, if there's another outbreak, there's going to be another outbreak. I can see that in the end of the summer, it's going to happen again, just because there's no cure. There's no real way to make it disappear. With our society as interconnected as we are and as our living situation is, you're never going to make this go away. So my advice is, when we reopen, start slow. Don't bring all your employees back right away. go slow. If you're a sole proprietor, obviously you're doing the work yourself. But if you have a handful of employees, do as much work you can by yourself until you get back into where you can bring your employees back. Because the last thing you'll want to do is bring your employees back for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You start to get your stuff back in order, and then boom, we get hit again. Be mindful of that. Go slow. Most small business owners, though, are going to do a good job with that.
How dependable should they be on the banks to help them when they reopen back up? I mean, interest rates, interest rates going to be low? Are they going to be dealing with high interest rates when they're taking money to help float payroll and whatnot?
No, banks are going to be scumbags. Banks are going to, because again, here's what you're going to see happen. The banks, I deal with this every time. It always happens to me. All my clients always say, oh, this bank said I should apply for this loan. Again, they get a fee if you apply. They don't care if you get it or not. So I think you're going to see a lot of banks trying to sell you loans, try to sell you lending, try to sell you something because they want the fee. Bankers get credit for applications processed. So you're going to see a lot of that happen too, where they say, they're going to try to sell you loans, and be careful taking loans. The banks may open the floodgates and say, hey, the SBA has released lending regulations. We'll give you a $50,000 SBA loan right now. Make sure you can afford to pay it. Make sure you're taking what you need and you're applying that money properly, because I can see the exact opposite happening too, where the banks just go crazy, just throw money out there, knowing that people need it, and then knowing that they're going to have the ability to take your stuff if you default on it. So
I want to take a couple. Obviously, I want to get a little bit to your campaign before we wrap things up here. You're running for New York 27th as a libertarian candidate for Congress. You're going against a Republican or Democrat incumbent. I can't.
Neither. Our congressman is going to jail.
Okay. Well,
actually, Chris Collins was indicted for insider trading, found guilty, and is going to do 26 months in a prison. And his living conditions will be nicer than some of the people in my district. Let's be honest.
That's the way it happened.
He's going to Club Fed. Let's be honest. That's terrible. That's terrifying, and it's sad. There's a special election in June. As of right now, it's in June. To see who fills the seat to the end of the year. If you're watching this and you're thinking, why vote third party? Well, let's be honest. The Republicans and Democrats have given you $23 trillion in debt and never-ending war. You really have nothing to lose by doing something different. You don't. What's the worst that's going to happen if I'm in office? You send a message to the establishment, the machine, the swamp, the whatever you want to call it, on the reds and blues that you're pissed. I mean, you have nothing to lose by doing something different, because for the last 30 years, it's been more of the same. Your rights are being stripped away. We're spying on civilians. We're spying on each other. We're sending my friends and family to war. We're mortgaging your grandchildren's future in debt. It's not getting better. If we don't try something new, we're going to experience the ramifications of our actions. So
education has obviously a lot of schools closed, and a lot of people went to homeschooling and virtual teaching. Do you see that as a positive or a negative? Because I get two different sides. I hear, like, some people like it, some people are like, I need my kids to go back to school. As far as education, as a libertarian, there's a lot of preaching for competition and private schooling versus schools run by the Department of Education. Where do you sit in that?
Well, real fast, one of my clients, funny you say that, one of my clients actually came in my office last week, and he sat there and he goes, hey man, he calls me, he goes, hey man, are you open? I go, yeah, I'll take whatever I can get right now,
Right.
He goes, all right, I'm coming in. He goes, do you mind if I come in? I'm like, yeah, it's fine, come on in. If you want to wear a mask, go ahead. If you want me to wear one, go ahead. If you want to bring Clorox wipes and wipes, he goes, dude, I got it. I'll be there in 20 minutes. So he comes in and we shoot the crap for 2 hours, and he goes, man, you do my taxes. I got 5 kids, 4 girls and a boy. all between the ages of 13 and 17. I just needed to get out of the house. My wife's an essential employee. It's just me and the kids. I had to get out of there. I had to get out of there. So I let him hang out in the office for a couple hours. We talked and stuff, and it was a good time. But no, I think that this has shown that virtual education can work. Distance learning can work. And I think it's also shown that homeschooling can also work, because that's what's going on right now. New York State.
How much money can I be saving now, being that my kids are home and learning virtually?
Well,
I mean, think about it.
Well, the thing is, too, is that the issue you run into is, let's be honest, the New York State Teachers Union has a lot of power, and they're not going to let those jobs go away.
Right.
It's simple as that.
And the Department of Education has a lot of power and a lot of lobbying power.
Yes. And it's terrifying because our public school system, I feel terrible for teachers. Let's talk about the federal government's impact on education. No Child Gets Left Behind was a colossal failure. Common Core was a colossal failure. Teacher evaluations are a failure. Standardized testing, failure. The federal government sucks at regulating education, and getting them out of it would be a massive win for us. But what happens is the fear-based. If you hear say, well, the federal government should be out of education, teachers should be able to teach, they should be able to run their own classrooms without as many regulations, without as many stuff. Oh, you hate kids. No, I don't. I feel bad for teachers. I feel bad for students that are forced to do things a certain way that isn't working. We're throwing money at the problem, but it's not solving it. Our test scores are dropping. It's not teachers' fault. Teachers are amazing people. They're hardworking people. They're working their butt off. They're pigeonholed by bureaucrats, by politicians who haven't been in a public school sometimes in their entire life.
Right, but those same politicians, I bet you the curriculum is the same from when they were in public school. Because, I mean, we're in the future technology.
If they went to public school.
Right.
Let's be honest. Some of these, they went to private school. They've never been in a public school. They don't know. They're not. I'm not a teacher. Let me put it this way. I don't want my teacher client telling me how to do my job. Why the hell should I, as an accountant, tell her how to do her job?
Right.
She's the teacher. If I break my arm, I go to a doctor. I don't say, Doc, this is how you should be doing it. No, my arm's broken. Fix me. That's your job. If there's a leak in my faucet, I call Chris Olensky, because he's the one that fixed my leaky sink. I don't do it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's super embarrassing, I know, but it's the truth. Let teachers do their job. Stop forcing regulations down their throat. Stop forcing things down their throat, and let them do hands-on things with their students. They're with them 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. They're going to know how they respond. It's why they're there.
Absolutely. And we have a comment that just popped up. It says teachers should be accountable to the parents, not the bureaucrats. I mean, you correct on the teachers being able to do their job. Yeah, because a lot of the BS is because how many administrators do you need in the school? I mean, you got 6 people doing a job that one person could do, right? You got a lot of people doing the job that one person should do.
And then let's talk about administrators and how much they make. They make 3 to 5 times as much as a teacher.
Right.
That's where your money's going, and then they get the pension system. New York State's doomed. I'm going to stay here and fight because I can't. I have to. I have to fight for my friends and family who can't leave.
I'll be honest, Duane, I'm out of here. I'm out of here as soon as I can. I'm doing what everybody else is doing and moving out. I mean, that's what happens. Over 1 million people over the past 10 years have fled this state, taking their pensions with them, draining it.
Well, let's talk about that too. Who's leaving the state?
People who are taking the pensions.
Well, no, taxpayers.
Yeah.
Taxpayers are also fleeing the state. Who's coming up in this state? Tax consumers and kids. Kids, no offense to children, you are default a tax consumer because you don't pay taxes, you're a kid. It's not your fault, it's just a fact. So what happens is you have massive wealth leaving the state. Your average income, your average wealth of the person fleeing is greater than the person coming in or being born, because you're born with no wealth. So you're seeing that the population is losing. We're losing population. Our budget's getting bigger. Our size of government is getting bigger. That is a terrifying graph, because you're pushing a burden. Let's talk about allocation of costs. If there's 5 people in a room and you bill them $100, it's $20 a person. Right. If there's 2 people in the room and now you bill them $200, it's $100 a person. You can't do it. You're right. Pushing the burden. But what if those 5 people could all afford $20? One of those 2 people can't afford $100. Now it gets pushed onto one person. That person's going to leave. He's going to say, "This sucks. I'm out. I don't want to pay $200. I'm out." And right. That's what's happening. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And I look forward to when New York State passes Medicare for all, and the ramifications of that, which has already started, by the way. New York State just passed a bill. I know you want to end soon. We're pushing an hour, so I'm gonna talk about this in New York State. New York State just pushed a bill, and here is the unintended consequences. Progressivism is selfishness, greed, and ignorance feigned as caring about other people. It's selfishness because I want mine. Where's mine? But I'm going to say it's because I care about him. It's right. Greed because they want theirs. And it's ignorance based on just unintended consequences. So New York State passed a rule with non-emergency medical transportation. They're trying to cut back on you taking a cab ride to your doctor's office. Mm-hmm. You taking a non-emergency medical transport, cabs, Ubers, etc. Who's most impacted? There's 2 groups. Who is most impacted by these cuts that they're doing? What they're trying to do is get it so you're not taking a cab to your doctor's office, you're taking public transportation.
Right.
Who's most affected?
They're trying to justify the amount of money they spend on public transportation, because the MTA
but who's most likely going to take that hit? Low income, inner right. city minorities.
Well, it keeps them dependent on the government. It keeps you have to stay dependent on them, and then whatever they would tell you they want to pass. You think that you need them, because look, if I don't agree with them, I'm not going to have a way to get to the doctor, because then they're going to shut down the trains or the buses. It's all the way to keep people dependent on the system that keeps.
And who is this disproportionately going to hurt? Inner city, low income minorities, because they have lower car ownership. Right. They're more in the cities, and you're pushing them onto public transportation. Mm-hmm. If I'm on Medicaid, if I'm given free government insurance, I can afford to take a limo to my doctor's office. But the people in the city of Buffalo, the people in New York City that don't have vehicles, that can't afford them, right. They're stuck on public transportation. And this will also affect those in the suburbs, those people farther out in small towns, upstate New York. If you're in the middle of Nowhereville, in my district, if you're in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming County, right. and you don't have a car, or you only have one vehicle, your husband works, you're a stay-at-home mom, you don't work, you only have one vehicle, what options for public transportation are out there?
Right.
So it directly impacts, small towns and low-income minorities. And this is the unintended consequence of Medicare for all. This is the unintended consequence of expanding government regulation, is that it's inherently going to harm a lot of people. Simple as that.
Now, prior to you becoming involved with the Libertarian Party, you were a Democrat prior. Is that correct? Or just independent,
I was a registered Democrat because I never switched, but I voted conservative. Really weird. I was a Democrat.
Well, the Democratic Party used to have conservative principles about sometime around the 90s. They did believe in smaller government. I don't know where that went.
You can buy votes easier by giving people free stuff. Simple as that. That's where it went. You don't have to educate the voter base to get them to vote for you. If I start saying things like, I want to give you, I mean, seriously, I could say, I want to give everyone $10,000 a month. I'd probably get more votes because people say, oh, free money. They don't need to know the ramifications of what's going to happen.
Or look at Bernie's campaign. That's a prime example. Of as much free stuff as they could give you. I just want to wrap up with a couple of things. You are running as a libertarian, 27th district.
Yes.
Who are you running against? You got who are you running directly against?
The Republican is Chris Jacobs, who is a career politician whose family owns Delaware North. He is an attorney. They got a lot of money. His family, the Jacobs family, owns the Boston Bruins and Delaware North. My opponent, Nate McMurray, used to work at Delaware North. He got laid off when he started attacking Delaware North. He is also an attorney. He was the Grand Island supervisor at one point, I believe. But he's the Democratic opponent to me. And then there's me, and there's a Green Party candidate. I don't know much about him, but there are 4 of us in this race.
Well, let me ask you a question, and this is your pitch here. For people who don't know what a libertarian is, or a lot of people are not really familiar with their party, why should somebody in your district, 27th district, vote libertarian this time around instead of the 2 major parties?
So the reason why they should vote libertarian is because they do have more libertarian beliefs than they realize. If you're in a small town, you are more libertarian than you realize. But when people ask me, Duane, what is a libertarian? And this is what I tell them is that we believe that as long as you're not hurting other people, you should be able to live your life as easily as possible without the overbearing regulations and laws that are put in place to keep you down. I believe in giving you the opportunity and resources to live the life you need to live, and the freedom to do so. So most people can agree with that. They don't want to be told the overbearing laws and regulations that kind of keep you down. It's not a world without stoplights. It's not a world without seatbelts. It's not a Mad Maxian society. That's what the red and blue teams paint us as because they're afraid to admit that at the end of the day, I believe in your ability to live your best life. I don't think that you're stupid and I have to tell you how to live your life and pass laws and regulations because if I don't do it, you're too dumb to understand how to live. I think that you are fully capable of living your life. I use gun control as an example. A lot of the pro-gun control people, their logic is literally, well, gun owners are so stupid, they're just going to shoot themselves because they're too dumb. It's not the case. A lot of gun owners, a gun isn't a weapon, it's a tool. In my district, a lot of them are farmers. They use it to defend their crops and their animals from predators. It's a tool. It's no different than a hammer or a wrench. It's a tool that they use to do their job. And in
a place like that, it could take a while before the police come because you're so spread out. It may take 15, 20 minutes before you see a police officer. In a life or death situation inside your home on your property, if you're defending it, you need that ability to defend yourself as well.
That too, right? Absolutely. In some of my district, in some small towns in my district, there aren't police offices. There are the state police and sheriffs are the ones that provide the services. So yeah, in 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, if you call 911, the local trooper and sheriff, they might not be 30, 40 minutes away. Right. So yeah, in 30, 40 minutes, a lot can happen. So yeah, it's about defending yourself. Absolutely. It's about maintaining, you've become your own law in theory. And so it's stuff like that. But a lot of people, they say, well, why should we vote libertarian? And it's simply that there's only one party that believes in you. I believe that we are the party of empowerment because I don't view groups of voters as incompetent or inferior. I don't think you're so incompetent I have to give you free money because you're too stupid to live your own life. I believe that if we give you the resources and opportunity to do so, you can thrive. It's simple as that.
Well, I want to encourage anybody who does live in the 27th district to vote for Duane. Duane, tell everybody where they could find you, donate to your campaign. Money is always a hurdle, especially when you're going against the DNR. And you just told me that one of them owns the Boston Bruins, so that's a pretty big cash flow.
One of them's family is a billionaire. Yes.
Yes. So how can we help donate our pennies to help your campaign be the billionaire?
I'm currently a hundredaire, so I'm almost there. But you can find more about me at DuaneWhitmer.com. I'm on Facebook at Duane Whitmer for Congress. Send me a message, ask me questions. Part of the reason why I run this race is for the people. People always say, well, libertarians, they can't raise any money. You're right. We're struggling to raise money. I am running for the people that don't have the extra money to donate to my campaign. I am self-funding a lot of my campaign. I am currently my biggest donor. I think at this time I'm just over $12,000 in donations to my own campaign, which is about, I think, 30% of what I raised. I'm okay with that. I knew this going in. I believe in this party. I believe in this cause. And I believe in fighting for these people enough where I will put my own money, my own savings, my own time, my own energy on my own relationships on the line, because I do believe it's time for more choice than the two parties. If you can't donate, feel free to take some door hangers and hang them in your neighborhood. Feel free to just make some phone calls on my behalf. I'll give you a mail. I'll give you a list. Feel free to get involved other ways. Share, send messages to your friends about me. There's a lot you can do if you don't have the money, especially this time of year and what we're going through. A lot of people don't have the money. That is okay. There's other things you can do. Nothing is too little. Nothing is too small. This is a true grassroots campaign. Most politicians use the term grassroots, and it's just, they say it because it sounds cool. This is literally a grassroots campaign. I am loving it. I love what I do. I would never go back and not make this decision. I would do it again in a heartbeat. But if you're watching, you want to get involved, DuaneWhitmer.com, Duane Whitmer for Congress on Facebook. Follow the page, share my stuff, ask your questions. If you want me to speak in front of some people, I will. We're going to start doing some ads and some sponsored Facebook ads and stuff. But, if you want to get involved, and like I said, we'll send you some door hangers if you want to hang some door hangers in your neighborhood. Anything adds up. Anything helps. We need to get the message out. So,
well, I appreciate it, Duane. Like I said, anybody who's involved. And another thing, between the DNR, candidates, they're always running for, it seems like, a career job. That, let's not forget that being a congressman, woman, you're there to serve your constituents in your district. You're a server, just like serving in the military, just like serving in, the police department, whatever. You're there for service, not to, it's not a career job. And you're looking to serve the people and not become that crony politician.
If I win, the message that is sent, if I win, is big corporations. I mean, it's a huge shot to massive corporations, to the wealthy, to the people buying elections, because I physically cannot buy this election. I don't have enough money.
Right.
So this is a massive message across the country. NY27. Look how much media AOC gets every time she breathes. Look how much media Bernie got every time, because he's considered a little bit different. Think about how many times I will be on the media representing NY27. Who is this nobody that came out of nowhere, third party to win a federal election? It hasn't happened any times recently. What the hell happened? So then NY27 can be one of the few districts in the nation proud of their representative, proud of who they put there. They didn't put a business-backed crony capitalist. They didn't put a machine, swamp establishment candidate. They put an actual working class accountant from the district there. They didn't put another attorney in office. They didn't put another politician in office. They put someone, a small business owner. It would be an absolute message to send across the country. This could be, in theory, a kickstart to a political revolution. And I'm not kidding when I say this. This could send a massive message across the nation, and it can start here in Western New York. It just takes your faith and your vote. And if you want to send me money, send me money. But that's what it takes. It just takes your faith, your trust, and your vote, and we can take and start a massive political revolution.
Well, I support you. I hope I wish you luck. I really hope you do succeed and take the 27th. I just want to remind everybody, if you have watched this on the Facebook page, to like and follow the page. If you watch this on the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want the audio version, we're on every podcast catcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever, iHeartRadio. Just subscribe, give us a rating, give us a thumbs up. We can always appreciate it here on The Exchange. And I want to thank Duane Whitmer for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it.
No problem, Duane.